Hello and welcome back to the My First Marathon podcast, where we interview runners in all stages of their running careers about their first marathon experiences to prove to you that anyone can run a marathon. My name is Taylor, and today's running journey began during the pandemic while living abroad, turned into casual runs just for fun, and eventually snowballed into half marathons, run club friendships, and a deep love for the DC running community. Along the way, Andie learned how to slow down, find her pace, fuel properly, and build confidence through community rather than chasing perfection. But this conversation also gets real about setbacks. Andie trained for her first marathon, made it deep into the training block, and had to make the hard call to step back when life and her body demanded it. That decision didn't end the story, but it did reshape it. We talk about resilience, unfinished business, and what it actually feels like when a marathon unravels late in the race, and why finishing your marathon doesn't have to be pretty for it to matter. This is a story about patience, perspective, and proving to yourself that you can keep going even when the plan changes. Without further ado, let's jump right into the episode. Please welcome Andie. Andie, thank you so much for coming on the show this weekend. I'm super excited to talk to you. I'm sure we'll get into kind of how we met in our story there, but Andie and I we've ran some races together. So I'm very excited to break down the start of your journey, your first couple halves and your first marathon. But first, just thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. So I guess we can jump into my little running story.
Yeah, let's do it.
I will say I was never an athlete growing up. I don't think I ever truly completed the mile during like the fitness test growing up. My high school sport was one season of golf.
Yeah.
And then in college, I played like one season of rugby in the fall. But then fast forward a few years, I moved to London for grad school, and I was looking for like a way to just enjoy fitness. I was at a point in my life where I didn't love the way I looked.
Sure.
And I was like very early into my fitness journey. I'd mostly been doing like Pilates, weightlifting. Then the pandemic broke out. So this is March of 2020, and I'm sitting there, I'm in another country. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with myself?
Yeah.
And that's where I was like, maybe I should learn how to run. So a girl who's never run a single mile in her life goes on a little journey where she's like, let me learn.
Yeah.
And I basically kind of just went out there, Nike Run Club, just started running, seeing how far I could run before I'd take a walk break. And I think the crazy thing about that is once you find your pace, progress happens really quickly at that early stage of the running journey.
Totally.
I went from 0 miles to 8 miles in like a month and a half, which I thought was mind-blowing. And I kept that up for about a year or so until I had to move back to the US from London. Fell off with running a little bit. And then fast forward to 2024, where I'm mostly running maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, just because it's kind of fun, but not seriously. Then a friend of mine from grad school tells me that she's running the London Marathon, but she was super inspired by the TikToks. And I was like, oh, I could get back into running more seriously. Yeah. So like the intrusive thoughts continue. I start running 3 times a week again, put myself on a little training plan just to rebuild. And then I signed up for the DC half.
Yes.
And I think that's where like my running journey like truly exploded, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I actually love that you started out with just I'm going to run for fun. Like, I'm just going to figure this out and learn. What do you remember like learning at the time from that 0 to 8 mile build up? Like what was all the information that was circulating for you?
I think for me, it was just learning to find my pace. I guess I never realized once you hit a pace that makes sense, it becomes not necessarily easy, but manageable.
Yeah.
Because like for me, I always assumed you had to go sprint just as growing up when you're in school, pretty much everyone can run a 7-minute mile at the age of 10 because they're just young, fast. But then I failed every high school beep test, which also was ingrained in my brain as how much I hated running at the time.
Yes.
But like finding that like 11 to 13 minute pace was where I really got super comfortable. And then just kept going. I'd just periodically be like, I'm going to go out for half an hour. Turned into, I'm going to go out for an hour. And then it turned into, let's just see how far I can go. And then 8 miles was my sweet spot because I had no idea about fueling, or I didn't even bring water on my runs at this point in my life.
Yeah. It's all a learning curve. Yeah.
It's crazy to think about how I didn't bring water on an 8-mile run in the summer.
I know. I feel that exact same way. I just posted a TikTok of like that exact thing where I found a video just randomly of that I filmed of an 8 mile run where I I'm like proud of myself. I showed this tiny little like 6 ounce water bottle, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. Here's my little water bottle. I'm like, what was I doing? No wonder it sucked. No wonder running was hard. But yeah, that's great. So we got up to 8 miles, and when your friend was talking about the London Marathon, were you thinking like full marathon for yourself, or were you thinking like, let me just put together a plan and see and find like a half marathon or something to build up to, like a larger goal?
I think initially I was like, I don't really need to sign up for a race. I kind of just want to be able to hit that distance.
Yeah,
Because when I first started running, that was always the goal. I never made it to the goal, obviously, because at that point you do need to learn about fueling and water. So I was like,
totally.
I want to make it to a half marathon and I will be a very happy person. And then I saw that the DC half was happening around the same time the training plan I was on was about to end. So I was like, let me sign up for that. There's still slots available. And that's really how I got into racing, because I didn't realize how awesome it was to race with so many people, how many paces are out there, and kind of
Yeah.
just the DC running community as well.
Yeah, I've heard amazing things, and I've seen from obviously your videos that there's a really awesome run club out there that you've been able to join. But I know that because spoiler, I ran the DC half marathon as well. This is where Andie and I met, but we met at the shakeout run that Mackenzie, Realistic Runner, and Gabby and Lauren that they all were hosting. So I guess how did you find that community? Because that's a very special corner of the internet, those running influencers.
I think one of the things I was looking for, like in my doom scrolling, started getting a lot of running content, but I never related to the faster runners. And then one day Mackenzie's TikTok popped up, and then Gabby, and then Lauren, and I was like, this is awesome. And then when I saw that they were hosting this half marathon shakeout, I was like, let me do that. It's a little outside of my comfort zone. I'd never been to a run club before. I was always scared to run with other people. But I thought this would be such a fun opportunity to do that. And they happened to be meeting near my apartment. So I was like, worst comes to worst, I can just go home quickly and decompress
Right.
if like this
Yes.
doesn't go well. But it
Yes.
turned out to be awesome. I met a few other people who are members of Slow Girls Run Club DC, and that kind of showed me this is the community I want to be a part of. And it's the community that continues to inspire me every day.
Yeah.
I think there's just so many types of runners out there. And once you find your niche, it's incredible.
Yes. Yeah. And once you find those running influencers that you relate to, like your algorithm starts to feed you more and more people that are like that, whether they're influencers or other runners that are just in the space creating content. But yeah, it's a special thing that happens when you find this little like corner of the internet that you can relate to. And you're like, okay, these are my people. I can do this. But yeah, the shakeout run was great. And I will say, shameless little promo here, Gabby and Lauren are both coming on the podcast within the next month and a half. So we'll have
Yes.
those stories coming up very
I'm
soon.
excited. They're both so lovely.
They're the best. Yeah. Yeah. No, and they did a great job with the shakeout. So we ran, I mean, DC, Andie's lives in DC, so you know DC better than me, but it was a beautiful little run that we went on, and we ended at this nice little coffee shop. And I remember from, I guess, my side of the story, like you were running your first half marathon, and there was a lot of people that were running their first half marathon at the DC half. So there was a few of us that were like, why don't we just all run this together? Like, let's get each other's numbers. But yeah, tell it from your side. What do you remember about that day?
Yeah, so I was so nervous going in. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so bad at social situations. But then as we were running, I started talking to you, talking to a few other people. I loved that we all got each other's numbers. And then,
Yeah.
like, the next morning, I get to the start line. I'm like so overwhelmed. And then I get that text from you in the group, and I'm like, let me go find Taylor. I
Yeah.
know what she looks like. Because, like, in the haze of the morning, I'm like, do I actually remember what people look like?
I felt like that too. Yeah, I was like, oh god, I'm so glad I got their numbers, and I'm gonna have to like make sure I know everybody's name. It's so tricky when you meet somebody for like
For
literally
sure.
one time, and then the next day you're
I
running
will
for
say,
2.5 hours together.
I think you'll love this. I think one of my core memories of how I recognized you was like, Taylor has awesome tattoos.
I love that. That's awesome.
Then
Love that.
and then I found you, and I feel like the rest is history in a way. Like, I think
Yes.
had I not found you for the half, I would not have loved it the way I did.
Oh,
Because
that's
there's
good.
something
Yeah.
about running with someone else, especially when it's your first half, or like
Yes.
first any race, where it's like, oh my gosh, at least I have someone who's done this before, who gets it.
Yeah.
And it was just such a fun race. And I think the DC half overall always brings good vibes. I really loved that experience. And like by doing all of that, I was then inspired to actually go to Run Club. And in like the past year and a half I've been running with Slow Girls, I've also just met a ton of other people.
Yeah.
And back in the spring, I ran the DC Rock and Roll half marathon, ran into a friend from Run Club at the start line. It was her first half marathon. So
Oh, so you got to pay
I
it
got to do
forward.
that exact same thing. And it was just so fun. Because like I think when you run with friends from Run Club, sometimes they're like, "Oh no, don't worry. If you feel like speeding up, go ahead." I'm like, I'm not going to do
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
because if this is your first, I want you to feel supported the way I got to feel supported. And
Yeah.
I think I'm just very thankful for everything, like that whole experience that the DC half did.
Yeah, oh my God, me too. That race really taught me, like, for myself, that because I was planning on racing that race that day, like going to Run Club and everything. Like I was like, no, screw that. Like this is gonna be way more fun to just run with other people. But yeah, that day taught me, like, I gotta do this more. This, like you said, it feels so good to pay it forward and like be there for somebody else's first day, and it's also so much fun to just see like a first race through somebody else's lens, knowing that you had done that and somebody else had seen you in that way. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's so much fun and definitely something to be intentional about doing more. But yeah, tell us about your first half marathon. What was the day like? What do you remember?
So DC half, I wake up in the morning, I'm like, crap, how do I get there? Because like as you witnessed during the DC half, it is not the most convenient spot to get to in
No.
all of DC. And every time I go there, I'm like, oh, I have to do this journey of like 20-minute walk from a random spot on the mall. So
Yeah.
like I'm just like doing the nervous walk. I see the crowd. I follow the crowd. I get to like the start village basically. And up until like I got the text from you, I'm just like, oh, I'm so nervous. I'm so scared.
Yeah.
But like once I found you, I think all the nerves kind of disappeared because I'm like, I'm not alone. And I know we had another lady
Friend
running
with
with
us.
us.
Yes.
I'm like, I don't know if she wants her name mentioned in
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, we had another friend from the Shakeout Run that was also running her first half marathon, so it was both of you guys.
So yeah, I think once I found y'all, it kind of just everything felt great. Like I was a little nervous crossing the start line, but then we also saw Gabby, Mackenzie, and Lauren, and that was just
Yeah.
super fun too. Just like seeing them throughout the course.
Yeah.
And just like I felt like because there was just always support for that whole day, it was just perfect. Like
Yeah.
most races I'd say are not very perfect in my brain, but this was kind of that ideal first half marathon experience. It was like crossing the start line felt so special, being around like really awesome people. And it was one of those races. It's one of the rare races I've run where I've kind of felt great the whole time.
Yeah.
Because especially in DC, the weather can be funky. It's secretly really hilly. So the DC
Mm-hmm.
half was kind of like a nice mostly flat and fast course. And it's one that I enjoy running a lot now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was kind of just like the first 3 miles went great. We're on Haynes Point. It's very flat. You get to see the water, the Potomac River. Then you move on to a little bit in the mall till you go up Rock Creek Park, which is another thing where it is hilly, but you don't notice it until you're coming back. And like
Yes.
having people to run with on that course, I think is the key because it's not the most fun race. I think if you're solo, you're like a little mid to back of the pack.
Right.
It starts to like spread out a lot.
It does.
But I think because I felt so supported that even by the end when I was like, oh my gosh, I'm running out of steam, it was still like a great experience.
Totally. Yeah. And the crowd support was great. This is a half marathon. I think they only do the half, right? They don't do a 10 or a 5K. I know they don't do a marathon, but it's only the half, right?
They do a half and the 5K starts
Oh,
after the half.
got it. Okay, so there's two. Yeah, so it's a fairly like smaller race. They don't offer all the distances, but like I recommend it to everybody. It was so beautiful. Like you said, you don't really notice the hills and stuff because there's pretty good crowd support and it's pretty like beautiful out in that area where you're like out in the hills. So yeah, it's great. And then the finish line was actually phenomenal for like crowd support and everything. So for a half marathon, I thought that one was huge. And the like merch that we got was really great too. I
Yeah,
still have
I
all of
love
that.
that they do a beach towel as like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
finisher gift. And
Yeah.
it's also, I think, a great race, especially if you don't live in DC. It's a really fun way to see parts of the city. Because once
Totally.
you live in DC, a lot of the races are very similar and we're in like parts of the course. But the DC half continues to be my favorite of the courses just because it
Yeah.
doesn't have a crazy hill like the rock and roll half does. Anyone who's run the DC rock and roll half knows there's that hill. It is a rough one.
Yeah,
People make
yeah.
content about how to embrace the hill.
Oh my gosh, yeah, there's always that one. But yeah, so okay, so we finished the DC half. You got the first one out of the way. Where did you go from there? What were you thinking? Were you like, I got to do that again? Were you thinking like full marathon? What was the mindset after that first half?
I think after that first half, I was like, I don't know what I want to do yet. I was kind of in like my off season. I had a 10K a few weeks later, and it was just one of those falls where I had a lot of personal and work travel going on. I like between the end of October and New Year's, I was only in DC for I think 26 out of the 90 days. So it was kind of just an up and down of like,
Yeah.
I don't have time to think about what's next. But then I'm on a work trip in Kosovo, of all places. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, life is going to be weird next year. I can sense that. Let me do something fun.
Yeah.
So initially, I signed up for the Eugene Marathon, but there's a long story about how that did not come to fruition. And that was when I was like, okay, I have something to start training for once my travel is over. And it was super exciting to me because I'm from Oregon.
Mhm.
So I love everything about Oregon. And like, there's a really great running culture there. And Eugene is Tracktown, USA. I come from a family where my dad was a Nike employee for 35 years.
That's awesome.
Like he was a product engineer. Like he was on the team that worked on the Vomero ones, which
wow.
like mega throwback to like, especially if you think about the Vomero 18s being the current model.
Right.
So while I was never like a true runner or a true athlete growing up, I was surrounded by that. So Eugene felt like a really good first marathon, even though that didn't end up happening. But that was where my brain was going in early 2025, where I was like, this is what I'm looking forward to. And with that, I also signed up for a couple local races, including I did the Cherry Blossom 10 miler, which some people love it. I did not, but that might have been because I was sick running it. I was in denial while I was doing that.
Yeah.
And I also did the DC Rock and Roll Half as another training race.
So you were like staggering a lot of races throughout, which I think is an awesome way to do it. And were you following any sort of plan through this that you were like plugging these races into? Or I guess what did the planning around Eugene when you were thinking you were going to run the full? What did that look like?
So I used Runna as my training plan, which I think some people really love them. Someone jokingly told me it was like a toxic ex-boyfriend I personally keep going back to because I think once you learn how the app really works, it can be pretty great, but I will say I haven't loved it completely, but that was the plan I was using. So I was able to kind of just like play around with the mileage and see how I can incorporate extra miles into my race days if I had to.
Nice. Yeah, that's always good. And then, so yeah, as we're working through training, I guess if you're, whatever you're comfortable sharing about the experience, like when did you find out that you weren't going to run the marathon? Like where were you at in mileage, when you had gotten to that point for Eugene?
I was honestly pretty high. It was peak week when I decided I couldn't do this.
Yeah.
Like it had been a very rough winter. Like I come from a work background where I worked for a USAID implementing partner. So it was a very rough winter to say the least, between losing my job and then immediately jumping into a food service job. So if anyone who's worked food service knows, it's really hard to run and train while working food service because it's so much on your body, not only with the training, but with the food service. I was working 3 to 4 days a week at a bakery at that point. So I was getting a few niggles, but they weren't from running. It was from standing all day at a bakery.
That makes sense.
Kind of stuff. So I started to notice if I was standing too long, I'd have like a little back pain or a little foot pain. And I went through like varieties of honestly different running shoes to be able to stand all day. So I was feeling okay throughout most of the training block. Like before peak week, my longest run had been 17 miles. It was the most fun I'd had in such a long time. 17 is my sweet spot. It's such a fun distance. And with some of the routes I was running, I was having so much fun. But then we hit peak week. I'm running my regular route. I'm about 10 miles in, and I can't shake off this back pain. And for me, it's not the greatest mindset, but I will run through most niggles unless it's my back.
That makes sense, yeah.
More to come on that later. But I think we're in mile 10. I start crying. I'm like, I can't do this. I have 10 more miles to go to hit my peak week mileage, and I can't do this. I call my dad sobbing. I'm like in the middle of the trail, and my dad's just like, just drop it down to the half. You're fit enough to do a half. and
Yeah.
maybe not a full right now. And I'm like, I guess I'll do it. And I like do the sad like 2 mile walk back to the closest metro stop. And I'm like, get home and I'm like, okay, dropping this down to the half. I know I'll at least enjoy the half. And I knew I was going to see you there at one point.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's still positives about running the half in Eugene. There's still that iconic Hayward Field finish.
Yes.
But it was just such a humbling moment to realize you can do as well as you can during a training block, but then sometimes your body says no. And I definitely had a lot of lessons from that about going into the Marine Corps marathon training block later on, like how to balance food service and running.
Yeah.
But it was kind of heartbreaking because it was like I really wanted my first marathon to be my home state race. But then at the same time, once I got to Eugene, it was such a perfect half marathon course. I PR'd by 11 minutes, and that
Let's
was
go.
really exciting to me because I guess I was in such a zone. My goal was to run it easy in a way, whereas like I feel good. I feel like my heart rate's not going crazy. So I think I was really proud with the fact that I was able to PR while feeling very chill.
Yeah.
It was kind of like I guess that was meant to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you were so fit from training for a marathon. I know you like peak week, you pretty much trained for a marathon that first time around. Like you made it so far. So I'm sure your fitness was for a half marathon was exceptional. But yeah, that is like that. I'm sure that felt like a little bit of a gut punch to like get that far into training and like really try to push through it, even with all these things that are going wrong in your life, and then get to the finish line and be like, all right, well, I'm going to make the most of it. I guess, how was your mindset go like the day of Eugene, or maybe the day before Eugene, like the couple of days leading up? Were you disappointed? Were you excited? Like where was your head at?
I was actually really excited. So my
Good.
two best friends live in Oregon and Washington State. They've been my best friends since high school, and they had planned to come down all along. So when I told them I was dropping it down on the half, I'm like, you don't have to come. It's just a half marathon, which in the grand scheme of things, it's not just a half marathon. That's a long distance for a lot
Yeah.
of people. But they were like, no, we're still going to come down. So it's so special to have two of my closest friends in the US be there for me. So they were, and I was feeling very loved going into it. Like the fact that my best friend drove all the way from like, she lives on the border of like Canada and Washington. So she
Oh,
drove down
wow.
5 hours with a bunch of handmade signs just for me. And I was like, oh, I feel so loved coming into this. So even if I'm not running the full marathon, I still have that crowd support. My mom was there. And my friend who's Portland based, she is a pediatric resident. So she had to work the Saturday before. So she drove down from Portland the morning of
Oh
Eugene
my gosh, what a
to be
trooper.
there for me. And I'm like, it's hard not to feel so loved and so grateful for that, even though like it was so disappointing dropping it down to the half. I was like, I have my closest friends and my mom here. My dad is not a big fan of long car rides, so he was
Yeah.
cheering from his couch.
Yeah.
But I was just like, it's hard to, I don't need to feel this disappointment when the people I'm closest to are here for me. And
Yeah.
it was just so special finishing and seeing my friends and my mom. And I was like, okay, maybe the first half of this year didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, but it turned out the way it was meant to be. And I'm just so grateful that I had my family and my friends come out for me.
Yeah. That's such a good mindset. And like you said, Hayward Field is iconic. Like even my finish wasn't the best, but I like unmatched. It's such a cool finish line. I'd love to go back and do it again. But yeah, no matter how the day turned out, like ending like that and seeing your family, it's got to feel amazing. So from there, you finished that half marathon. Were you thinking unfinished business? Like I still want to run a full. That just wasn't my time, or what? What were you thinking?
I think I decided to take it really easy after that. And I was like, I'll contemplate if I really want to continue trying to train for this distance.
Yeah.
And I signed up for the DC half again because I just love it so much. And I was like, I don't have any other fall plans besides the DC half. And I just kept talking to my friends from Run Club who were like, you were so close, you need to do Marine Corps. And like I say that I was lovingly bullied by my Run Club friends into signing up for Marine Corps. One of my good friends from Run Club is kind of like what I call like the devil on my shoulder, where she's like, I know you can do it. I know you can do it.
We all
And
need
like,
that friend.
she'd already signed up. So
Uh-huh.
like I'm just sitting around and she's just like, so when are you gonna sign up? And I was like, I guess I can do it. And I did it. And
Yeah.
then I got nervous again because I'm like, what happens if I make it to peak week again and I can't do it?
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, I'm like, if I can run 17 miles, I will get across that finish line. It may not be pretty. And as I learned, it was not pretty for my first marathon, but I could do it.
Yeah.
And I think everyone knows training in, I think, Northeast summer is no joke. It's very humid here, but I was still determined.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess you mentioned when you were training for that first cycle when you thought you were running the Eugene full that you said that there were some things that you took from that and like adjusted for MCM. So what were some of those things that you felt like you made like adjustments on?
I think for me, one of the biggest things was learning not to run on days I was working, which
Mm,
meant really tweaking my schedule and just making sure that I wasn't like overusing time on my feet. Because when you're working a 4 to 6 hour shift just exclusively on your feet, it gets really painful.
yeah.
So that was one of the things, just really balancing out my work days and my run days. And I was also taking on a little less hours over the summer as well, just because of like staffing issues. So that was really helpful. And I think another thing I took out of that was really just to be a little nicer to myself. That's always a hard pill to swallow. It's just sometimes you miss runs, sometimes you don't hit paces. And I was very hard on myself during that winter spring training cycle in ways that I wasn't this cycle, and that I think led to less missed runs, less angry
Mm-hmm.
runs,
Mm-hmm.
and an overall very, what I thought was a very strong training block until maybe the last month. Yeah, it was kind of just like I was so hard on myself in the winter, and summer here is really hot. So I was really just like, get those miles in. If I don't feel like doing speed work, don't do it just because it is too hot.
Yeah,
Definitely came with some more mistakes made in the training block. But I was just proud of myself that I think I made 11 weeks without a skipped run,
that's
which I
great.
think is
Yeah.
really crazy, just given myself as a person.
No, it's tough. It's a long time to focus. I mean, it's 18 to 20 weeks where you're really asked to be locked in, and like you said, life on top of that. You're in the food service industry. You're on your feet, which are workouts in itself on some days, I'm sure. So yeah, it's a lot. I guess what was keeping you motivated through training? What was keeping you, even if you missed a run, like what made you show up for the next one?
Honestly, I just love that feeling of being like in the zone when I'm running. I run to pop punk, and that's one of these things where because I grew up on that music, I can really zone out and just get it done.
Yeah,
And it really is just having that good playlist makes me so excited to go out on a run. And if my brain feels good with the music, with the vibes, I will just get it done. And even if I'm like very sweaty afterwards, even if it's uncomfortable in terms of the weather, it's kind of just like being in that right mindset is like, I get to do this. I get to spend an hour, maybe 2 hours running to my favorite music in a city I've really loved living in for the past 4 years. And it's kind of just like finding the positives in uncomfortable situations has been really
totally.
helpful.
I love that. That's such a good mindset. You have had a great mindset with all the things that have been thrown at you through your running journey. You've had such a great mindset through the whole thing. I think that like yeah, a good mindset can carry you so much further than like your fitness can in some cases. So no, that's awesome. And I guess if we could fast forward just a little bit to your peak run, because the your whole training route, while I'm sure it wasn't easy, like that was kind of charted territory for you since you had really trained for almost a full marathon the first time. But where did you peak out at? What was your peak mileage at? And talk to us about that run.
I ended up peaking at 17 this time, just
Okay,
because
yeah.
it was a very crazy like September. So I peaked at 17, which in hindsight, I wish I peaked a little higher.
Hmm.
But it was just one of those things where by the end of the training block, I was really trying to balance out not really planning my life around running, but planning runs around my life. And it was
Yeah.
just a very busy fall between visitors and just trying to make sure I spent time with people, knowing that I had limited time left in the city. So I peaked at 17 miles, and it was one of those days where it was like 80% humidity,
Mm,
and I was definitely going a lot slower than I wanted to, given how hot it was. But I did 17 miles in Rock Creek Park, and I felt great. There were definitely certain things that I should not have overlooked that would impact me later, but it kind of like left me with that sense of confidence I didn't have in the winter, where I was like, I know that I will get myself across the finish line. I might have to power walk a little bit towards the end, depending on how I feel, but I will get myself across the finish line, even if
yeah.
it is not pretty.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you were like, okay, one way or the other, we're doing this. I guess what did fuel look like? You said that that was something that you struggled with for your first couple of races. How were you dialing in fuel? I guess what did that look like towards the end of your marathon block?
So for me, I've always struggled with fueling, like both like in terms of like the actual fuel consumed during the run and like the diet portion of that, because
Mm,
I think coming from a place where I initially started running to lose weight, it's such a strange thing to shift that mindset to I need to eat
totally.
in order to run well. And then on top of that, I do find most gels to be really gross.
I would
But
agree with that.
so I was basically trying to feel like every 30 minutes or so, which in my case, depending on my pace, can be between like almost 3 miles to 2.5 miles, depending on the day. And I think that overall was great, although on race day it was not great. So we'll be thinking about that in the future.
Yeah, yeah.
And I am a big fan of Nugs as one of my favorite pieces of fuel.
We love Nugs.
I do surprisingly like the texture of Morton gels. So
Okay, yeah, yeah.
those were the two that carried me along with salted watermelon goo. And I don't love the feeling of the vest as much as I used to, but having 2 water bottles of electrolytes helped me a lot too, just because I'm a very salty sweater.
Yes.
So having electrolytes instead of water has been game changing. And anyone who's run in the Northeast in the summer knows it is humid. You will sweat. Even if you think you don't need water, you need
You
water.
need water. Yeah, and probably more than you think too. It's
Absolutely.
crazy. Well, cool. Well, so it sounds like you were feeling like all things considered, everything was feeling pretty good. Before we get to race day, we're getting closer, but I'm curious about what camp of taper did you fall into? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What was it? What was it like?
I was so happy to be in taper. I
I
was
love
like, I
that.
am tired. I just want to run less.
Yeah.
But then I got the taper crazies and the taper flu.
Oh
So
no, you got sick.
yeah, and like I was like, I guess this is a sign that's a good thing I'm in taper. And like my reality of the taper flu was actually just food poisoning,
Oh
which I was like,
no.
great. I don't have to run much and my stomach hurts.
At least it was timed when you didn't have much to run. I guess that's a positive. But so a couple things during taper. Um, but I'm glad that you liked it and that you were hopefully feeling fresh for race day. But I know MCM, I'm sure being in DC is like a pretty big buildup. So was it like was the excitement building? Did you know people that were running? Like what was the 2-3 days before buildup like?
So my mom came down for
Oh,
MCM so
fun.
she could cheer me on. So that was nice having my mom around. She went to the expo with me, and that was just really nice to have her here as like my voice of reason when I was going a little bit crazy, being like, "Oh my god, can I do this?"
Yeah.
And I had a couple of friends from Run Club running MCM as well, so that was just nice being able to like see them. Like I got so lucky on race day. I ran into one of my Run Club friends on the metro,
Oh,
and it
fun.
is a very packed time to get there for like any race in a big city. Public transit the morning of is insane. And then another friend of mine ran with me for the first 10 miles, so that
Oh,
was really
nice.
nice.
I love that. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, let's fast forward to race morning. I'm itching to hear about it. So, leading morning of, I'm sure MCM the start line is just crazy. But yeah, talk to us about like how you were managing nerves, what the mindset was at the start line, and then we'll talk about the race.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I kind of woke up, I was like, let's go. I'm ready. I need to get this over with so that I
Yeah.
can come home and hang out with my cat.
Yes,
The
yes.
priorities in my brain, I'm obsessed
Of
with my
course.
cat, was come home, hang out with my cat. So woke up bright and early. I think I woke up at like 4 in the morning, scarfed down a bagel. I was like, I want to get to the start line as early as possible, just out of fear of like porta potty lines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think I was on the second train out of my station. It was packed. We were all packed like sardines. And I live far enough from the start line where you have to transfer trains.
Mm,
And it was just one of the most chaotic mornings of my life. But I was so lucky that as I was walking off the train, I see someone from Run Club. So we are in it together. We're going to get to that start line, get in that porta potty line, and just embrace the morning. And because my mom was there to cheer me on, I was like, I don't need to do backdrop because my mom will have everything I need by the time I get to the finish line.
yeah.
So that was also just like an added bonus that I didn't have to worry about. And I think, as most people know, Start Village porta potty lines very long,
Yeah.
lots of people. So this year, because it was the 50th anniversary of the Marine Corps Marathon, I think they doubled the number of participants. So it was a very crowded start line. And I think it was a little disorganized, but understandably so because of the way they doubled it. So like I was
Yeah.
still in the porta potty line by the time like the elites were going off. But even then, by the time I actually got to my corral, I still had to wait like 20 minutes. So I
Yeah.
was kind of low this morning. So I'm like, I'm glad it went the way it did, where I could still take it easy, still had a lot of time,
Yeah.
still found my friend I knew I was going to run at least part of it with. And yeah, it was just kind of like a very successful morning given the chaos.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like there was lots of distractions, so you weren't just standing there like doing nothing. So that's always a positive morning up to have so you're not just like sitting there being antsy. But yeah, let's break down the race. So we get started. I guess if you want to start with like the first half or so, like how was the first 10 to 13 miles for you?
Honestly, the first 10 to 13 miles were fantastic.
Love that.
I think I felt great, and then all of a sudden I didn't feel great, and that was around like the 13-mile mark.
Mm.
So like the first, I think it was between like 7 and 10 miles. I was running with one of my friends from Run Club, and she's like, "Go without me," and I'm like, "Okay." This I
Yeah.
think we do run at different levels, but I was like, let me start off at least running with her for a little bit. So that was really great. We were having so much fun. I will say the first 3 miles of Marine Corps are rough if you don't like hills. So
Mm.
the first 3 miles are in Arlington, Virginia. It's basically just uphill for 3 miles. And like anyone who's been to the Roslyn area of Virginia knows that not fun, but you get that chunk out of the way.
Yeah.
But by the time you're done with that, you head into Georgetown where the crowd support is amazing. And that was just like a really lovely part. Like, despite the hills, the first like 5 miles was feeling really good. Then after mile 5-ish or so, you end up on Rock Creek Parkway, which is also part of the DC half course. And it's a very familiar place to run for
Yeah, that's
me.
cool. I didn't realize that.
So yeah, I was feeling really good for the first like 10 to 13 miles. I felt like I was following the 5:30 pacer, and I felt great. I was like, I can do this. I can do this in 5:30. And then all of a sudden, I did not feel great.
It's like stomach.
It was foot pain, actually,
Oh,
which was like,
interesting.
this
Yeah.
is not what I expected. And then
Yeah.
eventually the stomach caught up with me. But yeah, I felt amazing the first 13 miles. And like, I think the first 13 in Marine Corps are also just very special because like the start of the course, I used to work in that neighborhood. So it was nice just like
Cool.
running past my old office and then running to Georgetown. One of my friends used to work in Georgetown. So after work, I'd go see her there. So it's like, oh my gosh, I get to run past all these places that mean so much to me. But
Yeah.
then I hit mile 13. I'm like, I feel a little off.
So you hit that point and you're starting to feel foot pain. What was the mind like? How did the mindset shift? You were like, oh my gosh, can I do this? Or were you like, I need to just power through this? Like, what were you thinking?
I'm like, I'm going to power through this. I'm going to incorporate a little more run walk intervals. I'm going to go a little slower because maybe
Mhm.
that's the issue. And I was able to still keep up with the 5:30 pacer for a little longer. And then I was like, goodbye, my friend. This is not happening anymore. So
Yeah.
let's try to finish sub 6, which eventually also was a goal that died. So I keep doing that up until about, I see my run club at around in between like mile 16 and 17. That
Yeah.
brings me a little life seeing some of my friends again. And then I see my mom like by mile 18. I'm like, Mom, hello, I'm in pain. And she's like, go finish this. We need to go eat food after this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm fueled by
Got
food.
it.
And
Yeah.
my mom's just like, she's like, I love her. She's always a little confused when it comes to transit in DC. And she's like,
Mm.
okay, I'll see you in Roslyn. Hopefully you still stay fast. And I'm like, yeah,
Thanks, Mom.
thanks, Mom. She's not a runner. She does not
Yeah.
like running. She
Yeah.
likes cheering. So like, it
She's
was
there.
so
She's at
special to
mile
see.
18. It's a good time to have a mom there to like give you a little boost.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
It
she's
was so
doing her best.
special seeing her. It's just the fact that she flew out here, partially
Yeah,
for our
totally.
birthdays earlier that week, but then also for the marathon.
Totally.
And yeah, I was like, okay, I got this. Just got to get through the mall, and then we'll hit the infamous 14th Street Bridge, which I think for anyone who's read about Marine Corps, there is a 1.5 miles, almost 2 mile stretch that's basically on a highway that crosses the Potomac River back into Virginia.
Yeah.
That was where everything went down the drain. At
Mm.
that point, I feel it in my stomach. I'm trying to
Mm.
get down my gel at mile 20, and I'm like, if I continue eating this, I will probably projectile vomit. So at mile
Mm.
20, I stopped trying to take in fuel because I was in too much stomach pain. The foot pain was on and off. And I was like, I'm going to get through the bridge. Like, I think I was still keeping, I wasn't at the greatest pace in the world for my personal standards by then. But then I was like, I'm just going to finish this. But then I started crashing out a little, as the kids would say.
Yeah,
Like,
hit the wall a little.
I finished the bridge. I'm like, I'm just running. I'm cruising a little bit for the last portion of the bridge because it's going down a hill. The crash out begins when I see that we had to do a loop of the Pentagon parking lot.
Oh
And I'm like,
no.
absolutely not. That's where I was like, the crash out was so bad. And like, I'm already in pain. The idea of more fuel is killing my stomach. So that's where I'm like, I'm just going to power walk the rest of this because I think that set me off in a way I never thought I could get set off during a run. And I'm like,
Yeah.
we're going to try and run as much as we can. But then I think because I don't know if this ever happens to you, but once I start walking a little too much, it becomes too hard to run.
Yeah, 100% know what you mean. Yeah.
And
It's like going to the bathroom at the end of the run too, where when you sit, you're like, oh man, this is gonna be really hard to get back going again. Yeah,
it
totally.
was just that moment where I was like, oh no, I screwed up on how I was doing these run walk intervals. So I'm like, I'm going to power walk this the best I can. I'm like, this is not the race I expected. Every pacer I was trying to follow has run past me at this point. Like I see 550 go by and I'm like, you know what? At least I'm going to finish this.
Yeah.
Like this is not the race I wanted to have, but it is the race that is happening. I'm going to power walk this. We get through the Pentagon parking lot loop. There's a couple of semi-quiet streets. We hit the part in Crystal City where everyone's like, "It's Crystal City is a party. Crystal City is a party. People will be giving you snacks and alcohol." And I'm like, "No, I can't
You're like,
do
that's my
it."
worst nightmare.
I'm like, I was a little too cranky at that point. I'm like, I can't. I'm like telling myself, I can't be cranky. I'm running a freaking marathon. And then someone offers me a shot of tequila. I'm like, oh no, I can't do this. And like sometimes I'll have a little fun. If someone's offering me something during a race, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when I did the DC half this past fall, took a shot of tequila at like mile 5.
I love that. That's iconic. I love
This
that.
time I was like, oh no, I cannot do this. And the last 3.5 miles were basically just a run 30 seconds, walk until I feel like I can run again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I looked like I was in so much pain that someone looked at me and they were like, do you want a Tylenol? And I was like, yes, I do. Yes, I
You're like, how'd you
do.
know?
Even then, like, it is such an incredible race that there were still so many people. Like, I will say, from mile 1 all the way through 26.2, the number of runners was incredible. There were so many points where I was like, I feel like I'm in a pack of sardines. So I was very grateful for that.
Actually
like,
great. Yeah.
there were still so many people at the back of the pack. And at the end of the day, a marathon finish is a marathon finish. And like there were still great highlights at the end of the race. Like there's a run coach, like if anyone's heard of Coach D, she's on TikTok. She was in like a raccoon costume.
Cute. I love
like,
that.
And it was so close to the finish line. And like I saw that she said she was there till like the last finishers passed by. I'm like, that is the run support of DC in a nutshell. People love their runners here. So like that kept me going for like the last little bit where I was like, yep, I saw someone in a raccoon costume. I'm going to finish this.
Yeah.
And I made it to the finish line. I was on the verge of tears, but I was like, yes, I did this. I'm never going to do this again.
That was the first thought, was never
I
again.
think I texted 5 of my friends while I was on the 14th Street Bridge at mile 20. I'm like, I can never do this again. Never let me sign up for one again. And everyone texted back, no one's going to make you sign up for one again. You just might need to worry about yourself in 2 days.
Yeah. Give it some time. And then it'll come back around. But yeah, so I mean, you did it. You ran your first marathon. You got it. You got that one done. It seems like there were obviously it got really hard at the end, but did you feel like maybe reflecting on it in a couple of days after the race, like did you get a chance to really feel like I did that? Hell yeah. Or when did that kind of hit you, I guess?
It hit me at the finish line. I was like, that was so hard, but I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just such a beautiful race overall. It's so historic to be running the 50th anniversary of a race. And one of the things that's so special about the Marine Corps Marathon is that they do have all these Marines helping out on the course. A Marine is giving you your medal. And I think, regardless of what you feel about the American military, it is just so special, I think, for them to like do this on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just a reminder of just like, I think DC especially, just how big the role of like all of these servicemen and women are in the city too. So that was just very special to just have a young Marine put the medal on me. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so special. Like I come from a family that like my grandfather was career Army, so it's just very special for me, like despite some of my own other feelings about certain things in life, it's still so special. Like there is someone here who is choosing this life, and then they also get to be a part of my marathon journey.
Yeah, it is very cool. It's very cool. So good. I'm glad you got to kind of feel the like sense of accomplishment fairly quickly. And I know talking to you before we started filming that you're plotting some plans for your next race, but are you at a point where you're like, maybe I'd run another marathon?
Absolutely.
Always comes back around.
I have unfinished business. That's how I feel, where I'm like, I think on a good day, I probably could have stuck it out with the 5:30 pacer. But I think everyone says this, the marathon owes you nothing. And that was so true for my first marathon.
Yeah.
But I do feel like I have unfinished business, but it's just a matter of which race I want to do.
Yeah. It's a when. It's not an if anymore. It's a when, which is a fun feeling. Yeah, no, I love that you, again, just to kind of recap everything, like I love that you started slow. I think that's something that especially in this age of like glorifying the marathon, I don't want to get into that whole conversation here, but like I do appreciate the stories of people who really respect the distance. And I love that with everything that happened through training for Eugene, when you thought you were running a full, that you were able to kind of like compartmentalize and say, this just isn't my time. It's not going to happen, but it's not going to happen at this one. And being able to kind of put together a whole nother training block and getting to the start line of a marathon, I think is a success in itself with everything you had going on. So I loved it. I love your story. And yeah, it was awesome. What's coming up next for you? I'm kind of jumping the gun. We'll get back to our fun questions, but yeah, what are you plotting? What are you thinking? What's coming up from here?
You can catch me in the spring in Eugene again for the half, because it is truly my favorite half marathon course. It's not necessarily flat, but it does feel fast.
It does.
It's like weird to say because there are a couple of hills within the first 13 miles, but I ran almost all of them last year, besides that one, I think, at mile 9. So I'm excited to go back to that because I just love Eugene so much too. So it'll be nice. I think I want to PR my half there again.
Nice.
Because I think I'm at that fitness point too where I'm noticing that I'm getting a little bit faster. And I think focusing on a true half marathon training block in the winter, I think I can at least PR. I don't know. I might have a time goal. I might not. It's like such a day of thing for me where I'm like, do I really want to PR? I'll make a decision the morning of.
Yeah. I love that. So yeah, Eugene will be great. And then yeah, anything from there, or just keeping your options open.
I have 2 thoughts for the fall, but I think it's just going to depend on what type of training block I want. Because I'm moving back to Portland in a few weeks, so I'm like, maybe I do the Portland Marathon in the fall. This would be nice to do like a home city marathon. But then the other one I'm kind of thinking about is the Honolulu Marathon.
Ooh, that would be really cool.
I grew up abroad, but every Christmas we go to Honolulu because that's where my grandfather lived at the time. He retired there. He's buried in the military cemetery there, so I think it'd be very special just to go back and do that. And then also obviously visit Grandpa. Well, his grave, but
that would be so cool to do Honolulu.
It's a very special city to me, just because I went there every Christmas until my grandfather passed away. My uncle lives there, but then
cool.
Then there's the Portland of it all, where I'm like, I could just go home afterwards.
That's true. That is very true. Yeah, and I've actually heard really good things about the Portland Marathon in terms of like support and just the weather. Obviously in Oregon, in Northern Oregon, is really really great. If you hit it at the right time of year, right day of the year, I guess in October. It's in October, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, you hit it on the right day, and it's fantastic weather. But either one of those would be incredible. I'm excited to see which one you choose.
Yeah, definitely more to come on that. I'm like, decision making is hard.
Yes, yes. Well, we'll stay posted on that. But I always love to ask before we get into our fun questions about fuel and shoes. I always love to ask for a piece of advice. And since the Marine Corps Marathon is pretty fresh on your mind, I figured, kind of encapsulating your full story here and then the finish line, like if you could offer some advice to somebody who's maybe towing the line of their first marathon for the first time, what's that advice that you think you'd give them?
I say just sign up for it, but also give yourself grace. You never know what life is going to throw at you. Like looking at my 2025, I didn't expect any of this. So give yourself all the grace you need. Sometimes you have to cancel a race. Sometimes the race doesn't go the way you want to, but at the end of the day, you are getting started with that training block. You are crossing that start line, you are crossing that finish line. And I think just getting out there is so much fun. And I think the training process, embrace it, love it. There's something just so special about being able to spend that much time with yourself. And you really get to learn about yourself during the training process. I know
Yeah.
some people are like, oh, training, but I'm like, I love it. Aside from like the structure it gives me, it really just gives me time to think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I love it. Good advice. Cool. Well, now let's talk about shoes and fuel. So you mentioned some of the fuel stuff, but I always give the disclaimer before we get into this part that like fuel and shoes are your own journey. Try everything and anything when it comes to fuel. Find out what's best for you. Same thing with shoes. Get your feet measured at your local running store and find out what's best for you. But for you, you said you like Morton and you like Nugs. Is there anything outside of those two that you really like through training?
Honestly, I'm a big fan of Mortal Hydration's salted mango, and I think there's like a salted guava or like salted something tropical that includes guava. But
Mm,
Mortal Hydration has been one of my favorites. It's like the right amount of salty for me for my
nice.
electrolytes. And yeah, that's kind of just been like my go-to favorites aside from Nugs and Morton. And I will say, goo, the only flavor I like, salted watermelon.
Yeah.
So
Goose
that's
hit and miss with me as well.
those have been my tried and true.
Love it. Okay, cool. And then what about shoes? What do you like for shoes?
I am a Brooks Glycerin person, both like the regulars and the Max. Although I know some people love doing their long runs in the Glycerin Max, I can't do it. I find them a little too heavy after 6 miles.
Mm,
So I ran Marine Corps in my Brooks Glycerin 22s. They held up perfectly. Knock on wood, I've only lost one toenail ever. And it was during the marathon, which is very impressive considering how long I've been training for various races.
yeah, yeah, no, that's hey, if you can keep it under 5 toenails, you're doing pretty good, I think. So that's
Sure.
good. Okay, cool. So Brooks Glycerin, I love those too. But yeah, we already talked about what's coming up next. So I guess all we need to say here is if anybody wants to follow along with you and see which race you choose for your marathon next, where can they find you?
So I mostly post on TikTok. So you can find me there under Andie Becks. And occasionally I do upstate. My Instagram's private, but I will typically accept followers, which is also under Andie Becks. I think it's just kind of a mental thing where I'm like, my Instagram has to be private. I don't have a
Yeah,
running
yeah.
Instagram yet. But
Yeah.
if you know me or if you're interested in my keeping up, both TikTok and Instagram,
Love it. And you can see Andie's cute cat that she posts about a lot. We
yes,
love it.
Ponzi's taking a fat nap right now. Otherwise,
I
he'd be
love
in my
that.
lap.
It's so cute. Well, cool. I'll link all your show information in the show notes as well. But thank you again for coming on and telling your story. It's been awesome. Obviously, I've been a part of some of your journey, but it's awesome to hear like the in between pieces and everything you went through for your first marathon. So just thank you for coming on and telling your story.
Yeah, of course. I was so excited for this. I was looking back in my camera roll and I realized during Eugene, I think I was behind you and Colin and your mom for like a
Yeah,
solid like half the race, but I could see
yeah, yeah.
you trailing in front of me. So I have like a picture of your backs and I'm like, I'm gonna keep up to them.
That I love that. I was so happy that we found each other. Yeah, we didn't really talk about this, but yeah, it was like mile 10 or something like that, like kind of late in the half marathon where I was like, Andy, oh my gosh. It
Uh,
lined up perfectly. And you got to meet Colin too, which is fun. And my
oh,
mom.
Colin's awesome. Like one of
Yeah.
my biggest TikTok supporters is Colin. Shout out
I love that.
Colin. And to the point where my Spotify Wrapped was like gave me in like one of those like I don't know how to describe Spotify Wrapped anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they were like, your biggest podcast day. You ran a marathon on your podcast with Colin. And I'm like,
Oh, I
I
love
know what
that.
episode of my first marathon that is.
No, I love that. I love all the Spotify Wrapped. If MFM made it in your Spotify Wrapped this year, please tag me. It's been so fun to just see like which episodes have been people's top episodes, and like people have listened to the show, and the MFM was their top show. Like I'm so appreciative for that, and it is very cool when people send stuff like that. So please tag me. I love to see it. But thank you again, Andie, for coming on. Awesome to see you, and I can't wait to see what's coming up next for you.
Yeah, I'm so super excited and also just excited to listen to more of My First Marathon podcast episodes while I do my long runs. Of
Yay! Thank you so much.
course.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the My First Marathon podcast. For more stories, tips, and resources, head to myfirstmarathonpodcast.com. And if you want access to bonus episodes, exclusive resources, and extra support for your training, make sure you check out the community at myfirstmarathonpodcast.com/exclusives. You can also follow along with us on socials, Instagram and TikTok. That's at My First Marathon Pod. If you want to follow along with my personal journey, that's at tay.says. Whether you're training, recovering, or just thinking about signing up, you belong here. I'm so excited that you're here, and we'll see you on the next one.